Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the observation window of the research ship Endurance. In the darkness of space, dozens of alien vessels drifted like wounded birds. Their ships were strange and beautiful, but something was wrong. Many showed signs of damage, and they all moved slowly, as if their crews were struggling. Captain Marcus Rivera stood beside her. His weathered face showed concern as he watched the alien fleet. "They've been sending the same message for 3 hours," he said. "Our translators finally cracked it. They're asking for help." Sarah had never seen an alien before. None of them had. This was humanity's first contact with life from other worlds. She felt excited and scared at the same time. "What kind of help?" she asked. "That's what we need to find out," Marcus replied. He turned to his communication officer. "Tell them we'll receive one of their representatives. Small ship only." The alien shuttle that approached was unlike anything in human design. It looked like it was grown rather than built, with smooth curves and a surface that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. When it docked with the Endurance, Sarah felt her heart racing. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. The being that stepped through was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly. It had large eyes that looked almost human, but its movements were slow and clumsy. When it tried to speak, the words came out wrong, like someone trying to talk with a mouth that didn't work properly. "I am Kethvar," it finally managed to say through the translation device. "I represent the Zealoty Collective. We are dying." Sarah stepped forward. As the ship's xenobiologist, this was her moment. "I'm Dr. Chen. Can you tell us what's wrong?" Kethvar's large eyes focused on her with obvious effort. "The virus," it said. "The convergence virus. It has taken everything from us. Our minds, our bodies, our very souls." "A virus?" Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of virus?" "Not like your diseases," Kethvar explained, its voice getting stronger as it spoke. "This virus does not kill, it changes. It takes what makes each species special and twists it into something broken." The alien touched its forehead with one long finger. "My people, the Zealoty, we could speak mind to mind across vast distances. We could share thoughts and feelings as easily as you share words. The virus took that from us. Now our minds are trapped, alone, screaming in silence." Captain Rivera leaned forward. "How many species has this virus affected?" 67 confirmed, Kethvar said. "Perhaps more. Each one changed. Broken. Reduced to a shadow of what they once were. The Merhai could breathe water and swim between stars. Now they grow twisted limbs that trap them on dry land. The Lumen were beings of pure energy who could travel at the speed of light. The virus gave them solid bodies that are always breaking apart." Sarah felt sick. "Who created this virus?" "The Kethmori," Kethvar said, and its voice filled with anger and fear. "They were a warrior race, proud and violent. When other species finally united against them, when their defeat became certain, they released this virus as their final weapon. They wanted to make sure that if they could not rule the galaxy, no one else could either." "Where are the Kethmori now?" Marcus asked. "Dead. All dead. The virus took them first, before they could create a cure for themselves. They thought they were immune, but they were wrong. In the end, their weapon destroyed them too." Sarah began to understand the horror of the situation. "And now the virus is spreading?" "It moves slowly but surely," Kethvar confirmed. "It jumps between species through contact, through shared air, through contaminated surfaces. We have tried to contain it, but it always finds a way. That is why we came to you." "To us?" Sarah asked. "But we've never encountered this virus. We don't know anything about it. That is exactly why we came," Kethvar said. "Your species is new to the galaxy. You have had no contact with infected worlds. We pray that you might find a solution that older civilizations could not." The alien's large eyes seemed to plead with them. "We have scientists and doctors from 12 different species working together. We have the greatest minds from across the collective, but we think in the ways our species have always thought. Perhaps fresh minds, untainted by our failures, might see what we cannot. Captain Rivera looked at Sarah. She could see the weight of decision in his eyes. They were being asked to help save dozens of alien civilizations. But doing so might put humanity at risk. We'll do what we can, Marcus finally said. But we'll need to take precautions. Full quarantine protocols. Of course, Kethvar agreed quickly. We would never forgive ourselves if we brought this curse to your people. Your species shows promise. Your ships are crude but ingenious. Your determination brought you to the stars when many species would have given up. You are what we call adaptable. Sarah noticed something in the way Kethvar said that word. There was hope in its voice, but also something else. Curiosity. Maybe. Or fear. We will share all our data with you, Kethvar continued. Everything we know about the virus, about how it spreads, about what it does to living beings. In return, we ask only for your help and perhaps sanctuary. Sanctuary? Marcus asked. If you cannot find a cure, if the virus eventually reaches your world despite our precautions, we ask that you remember us as we were. Keep the memory of our peoples alive, so that something of us survives even after the virus has taken everything else. The bridge fell silent. Sarah looked out at the alien fleet again, seeing it with new eyes. Those ships carried the survivors of dozens of civilizations, all of them changed and broken by a weapon that turned their greatest strengths into weaknesses. We'll help, she said, surprising herself with how quickly the words came out. We'll find a way to stop this virus. Kethvar's glowing skin seemed to brighten slightly. Thank you, Dr. Chen. We have waited so long for hope. Perhaps your species will be the one to finally bring it. As the alien shuttle departed, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Somewhere in the data Kethvar would send them was the key to saving dozens of species. She just hoped humanity was smart enough to find it before the virus found them. 6 months had passed since the Endurance returned to Earth orbit with its cargo of alien refugees and terrible knowledge. Dr. Sarah Chen had barely slept in all that time. She spent her days studying the virus samples the Zalathi had provided, trying to understand how something so small could destroy entire civilizations. The research station they built was the most secure facility humanity had ever constructed. It floated in space, far from Earth, surrounded by layers of containment fields and automated defense systems. Nothing was supposed to get in or out without careful screening, but the virus was smarter than they had expected. Sarah first noticed something was wrong when Lieutenant Commander James Park from the security team came to see her. He looked tired and worried, which was unusual for the normally cheerful officer. Doc, I need to ask you something, he said, sitting down heavily in her office chair. Have you been getting headaches lately? Sarah looked up from her microscope. Headaches? No. Why? Because half my team has them. And it's not just headaches. Thompson says he can hear things that aren't there. Martinez claims she can see heat signatures without her equipment. And yesterday, Patel told me he knew what I was thinking before I said it. Sarah felt ice in her veins. When did these symptoms start? About 3 days ago, James said. Right around the time we had that containment breach in Lab 7. The containment breach had been small, barely worth mentioning in the daily reports. A seal had failed for exactly 17 seconds before the backup systems activated. The computers showed no viral particles had escaped, but Sarah was beginning to understand that the computers might be wrong. I need to run tests, she said, already reaching for her medical scanner. On all of you. The tests confirmed her worst fears. Every member of James's security team showed traces of the convergence virus in their bloodstream. But something was strange about the readings. The virus wasn't destroying their cells like it should be. Instead, it seemed to be working with them, changing them in ways that didn't match any of the alien data. Sarah immediately called Captain Rivera, who was still aboard the Endurance. Sir, we have a problem. The virus has infected some of our people. How bad? Marcus's voice was tight with concern. I don't know yet. It's not behaving like it should. I need to contact Kethvar immediately. When the Zalathi scientist appeared on the communication screen an hour later, its pale face showed the fear Sarah expected. But when she explained what was happening, Kethvar's expression changed to something she had never seen before. Confusion. "This is impossible," Kethvar said, its large eyes studying the test results Sarah had sent. "These readings make no sense. According to our models, your people should be experiencing complete genetic breakdown by now." "But they're not," Sarah insisted. "If anything, they seem to be getting stronger. Thompson's hearing is so good now he can detect conversations 3 rooms away. Martinez can see infrared light as clearly as visible light. And Patel? What about Patel? He's developing telepathic abilities. Like your people had before the virus." Kethvar was silent for a long moment. "Dr. Chen, in 67 species and over 200 years, we have never seen anything like this. The virus does not give abilities back, it only takes them away. But as the days passed, it became clear that humans were different. The infected crew members didn't lose their humanity. They remained themselves, but enhanced. Their minds stayed clear and focused. They could still laugh, still cry, still make jokes and worry about their families back on Earth. More importantly, they began to help each other in ways that surprised everyone. Thompson used his enhanced hearing to detect problems in the station's systems before the computers could. Martinez helped navigate in complete darkness when the power failed in Section C. Patel started predicting equipment failures hours before they happened, somehow sensing the stress patterns in the metal and circuits. Sarah found herself working day and night to understand what was happening. She brought Kethvar to the station in person, despite the risks, because the Zalathi scientist refused to believe the reports without seeing the humans for himself. "It's impossible," Kethvar kept saying as it watched Patel demonstrate his new abilities. The young security officer was sitting in a chair, eyes closed, while Thompson stood in the next room. Without any visible communication, both men suddenly turned and looked at the same point on the wall where a pipe was about to burst from pressure buildup. "Your minds should be breaking apart," Kethvar said to Patel. "The virus attacks the neural pathways that make telepathy possible. It should be causing you agony." "It did hurt at first," Patel admitted. "Like someone was rewiring my brain with hot needles. But then, something changed. It felt like my mind figured out how to work with the virus, instead of fighting it." Sarah had been studying the biological data for weeks, but it wasn't until that moment that she began to understand. "Kethvar, tell me about Zalathi evolution. How long did it take your people to develop telepathy?" "Millions of years," Kethvar replied. "It was a slow process, guided by our environment and our need to communicate across vast distances on our homeworld." "And the other species? How specialized are they?" "Very specialized. The Murhai spent 30 million years adapting to aquatic life. The Lumen evolved energy manipulation over even longer periods. Each species found their perfect environmental niche and adapted completely to it." Sarah felt pieces clicking together in her mind. "But humans aren't like that, are we? We're generalists. We adapt to new environments quickly, but we never specialize completely." "I don't understand," Kethvar said. "Think about human evolution," Sarah explained, getting excited. "We left the trees and learned to walk upright. We spread across different climates and terrains. We learned to use tools, to hunt, to farm, to build cities. We never stayed in one place or one way of life long enough to become perfectly adapted to it." She pulled up genetic comparison charts on her computer. "Look at this. Zalathi DNA is incredibly sophisticated but also incredibly rigid. It's designed for one specific purpose. Human DNA is much simpler, but it's also much more flexible." "You think this makes a difference?" "I think it makes all the difference," Sarah said. "The virus is designed to break down specialization. But humans were never that specialized to begin with. Instead of breaking us, it's just adding new options to what we can already do." That night, Sarah lay awake thinking about the implications. If she was right, if humans could not only survive the convergence virus, but actually benefit from it. Then everything would change. The weapon that had destroyed dozens of civilizations might become humanity's greatest gift. But first, she had to be sure. She had to test her theory in ways that would either prove her right or get her killed. The next morning, she made a decision that would shock everyone on the station. She walked into the containment lab and deliberately exposed herself to the virus. "Dr. Chen, what are you doing?" James Park shouted over the communication system. "Science," she replied calmly. "If I'm right about this, we're about to change the entire galaxy. If I'm wrong." She didn't finish the sentence. There was no need to. Everyone knew what happened to the other 67 species. Now all they could do was wait. Dr. Sarah Chen opened her eyes and immediately knew everything had changed. The research station's medical bay looked the same as before, but now she could see so much more. Heat patterns flowed across the walls like living rivers. Electromagnetic fields from the equipment created beautiful dancing lights that no human eye should have been able to detect. And underneath it all, she could sense the thoughts and emotions of everyone nearby like distant music. "How long was I unconscious?" she asked, sitting up slowly on the medical table. Dr. Williams, her assistant, checked his tablet with shaking hands. 48 hours. We thought we were going to lose you." Sarah could feel his fear and concern as clearly as if he had spoken them aloud. But she could also sense something else. Hope. The same hope she felt growing in her own chest. "Get Kethvar," she said, "and bring me all the genetic analysis equipment we have. I think I understand now." When the Zelathi scientist arrived an hour later, its pale blue skin seemed to glow brighter than usual. Sarah realized she was now seeing the electromagnetic field that surrounded all Zelathi, something her enhanced vision made visible. "Dr. Chen," Kethvar said carefully, "how are you feeling?" "Different," Sarah replied honestly. "But still myself." "That's the key, isn't it? I'm still human." She stood up and walked to the computer terminal. Her movements felt more graceful than before, more precise. It was as if her body now worked exactly as efficiently as it was supposed to. "I can see electromagnetic spectra like the lumen," she continued, pulling up genetic charts on the screen. "I can sense thoughts and emotions like the Zelathi. I can even detect chemical traces in the air, like the Murhai, but I haven't lost anything that made me human." Kethvar studied the genetic scans Dr. Williams had taken while Sarah was unconscious. "This should not be possible. The virus has integrated into your DNA, but your base human genetics remain unchanged. With other species, the virus overwrites their specialized traits completely, because other species spent millions of years perfecting those traits," Sarah explained. "Look at this." She brought up comparison charts, showing the genetic structure of different species. Zelathi telepathy required your brains to develop in very specific ways. Your neural pathways became incredibly efficient at detecting and transmitting thought patterns, but that specialization made them fragile. When the virus tried to change them, they broke. "And humans?" Kethvar asked. "Human brains are generalists. We can learn telepathy, but we do it through different pathways than you do. The virus gives us your specialized genes, but we integrate them into our existing flexible neural structure, instead of replacing what we already have." Dr. Williams leaned forward. "You're saying humans are like universal adapters?" "Exactly," Sarah said. "We're not the best at anything, but we're capable of learning almost anything. When the virus tries to force specialization on us, we just add it to our toolkit without losing what we already had." Over the next few weeks, more humans were exposed to the virus, some accidentally, and some as volunteers for Sarah's research. Each person reacted differently, gaining different combinations of abilities based on which alien genetic material the virus carried. But all of them remained fundamentally human. Lieutenant Thompson developed enhanced senses that let him navigate in complete darkness and detect structural problems in the station's hull. Dr. Martinez gained the ability to perceive quantum fluctuations, which helped her predict equipment failures before they happened. Security Chief Patel's telepathic abilities grew stronger every day, but he used them to improve team coordination, rather than losing himself in an ocean of other minds. They started calling themselves synthesis, humans who had successfully merged with the virus rather than being destroyed by it. Word spread quickly through the human research teams, then to Earth itself, and eventually to the other ships in the refugee fleet. The reaction from the alien survivors was mixed. Some, like Kethvar, were fascinated and hopeful. Others were angry or jealous that humans could do what their species could not. A few accused the humans of lying or somehow faking their results. "It's not fair," said Murhai scientist Flowing Current during one heated conference call. Its translated voice carried bitterness and pain. "Our people suffered for generations, while this plague destroyed our ability to swim between stars. Now these newcomers casually gain abilities that took us millions of years to evolve?" Sarah understood the anger, but she also saw an opportunity. "What if we could share what we've learned? What if we could help your people adapt the way humans have?" "Impossible," Flowing Current replied. "Our genetic structure is too rigid, too specialized. The virus has already damaged us beyond repair." But Sarah wasn't convinced. Working with Kethvar and volunteers from different species, she began developing new theories about genetic adaptation. The key seemed to be introducing flexibility into rigid genetic structures before exposing them to the virus. "Human DNA has something called junk genes," she explained to the gathered alien scientists. "Genetic material that doesn't seem to do anything important but actually gives us room to grow and change. Most of your species eliminated that junk over millions of years of evolution, making yourselves more efficient but less adaptable." "You're suggesting we deliberately damage our genetic perfection?" asked another Zalathi scientist. "I'm suggesting you trade some of that perfection for the ability to grow," Sarah replied. "Humans aren't perfect, but we're flexible. Maybe that's more valuable than being optimized for just one thing." The first trials were conducted on Zalathi volunteers who had already lost their telepathic abilities to the virus. Using carefully controlled genetic therapy, Sarah's team introduced human-style genetic flexibility into small sections of Zalathi DNA before exposing them to concentrated virus samples. The results were encouraging. The modified Zalathi began to recover some of their lost abilities while also developing new ones. They couldn't read minds as clearly as before, but they gained enhanced pattern recognition that helped them solve complex problems. They lost some of their species' traditional emotional sensitivity, but gained human-style resilience that helped them cope with stress and trauma. "It's working," Kethvar said during one of their late-night research sessions. "Not perfectly, but it's working. My people are becoming something new." Sarah nodded, but she was thinking about bigger implications. "Kethvar, we need to talk to the other refugee fleets. All of them." "Why?" "Because I think we can help everyone. Not just recover from the virus, but become something better than they were before." The virus was designed as a weapon to destroy specialization. But what if we turn it into a tool for creating cooperation? That night, Sarah stood in the observation deck, looking out at the growing fleet of refugee ships. More arrived every week as word spread that humans might have found a solution. Ships from dozens of different species, all of them carrying the survivors of civilizations that had been broken by the same virus now flowing through her own veins. But instead of feeling afraid, Sarah felt hopeful. Humans had always been good at bringing different groups together, at finding common ground between very different people. Now, they had the chance to do it on a galactic scale. The virus that was meant to make all species equally weak might instead make them equally strong. And humans, the galaxy's newest and least impressive species, would be the bridge that made it possible. She touched the communication panel and sent a message to Captain Rivera aboard the Endurance. "Sir, I need you to contact every refugee fleet in the sector. Tell them we're ready to begin the real work. Tomorrow, they would start changing the galaxy." Today, Sarah was content to watch the stars and feel the virus-enhanced awareness that connected her to every living being on the station. For the first time since this crisis began, she truly believed they were going to win. The attack came without warning on a Tuesday morning when Dr. Sarah Chen was working in her lab. The first sign of trouble was Lieutenant Patel's sudden scream of psychic pain as dozens of hostile mines appeared at the edge of the solar system. Unknown ships approaching at high speed. Came the urgent call over the station's communication system. They're not responding to hails, and their weapon systems are powered up. Sarah rushed to the command center where Captain Rivera's face filled the main screen. Behind him, on the Endurance's bridge, crew members were running back and forth as alarms blared. "Sarah, we're reading at least 50 ships coming in fast," Marcus said. "The energy signatures don't match any known refugee fleet. These ships are built for war." Kethvar appeared beside Sarah, its pale blue skin now flickering with patches of human-like pink where the genetic therapy had taken hold. "I recognize those ship designs," it said, its voice filled with old fear. "Keth Mori. But that's impossible. They're all supposed to be dead." The lead attack ship was massive and angular, covered in weapon ports that glowed with deadly energy. When it finally responded to human attempts at communication, the voice that came through was harsh and filled with rage. "Humans," the alien commander said. "You who dare to corrupt our perfect weapon. You who turn our virus into a tool of weakness and cooperation. We are Warlord Keth Thul, of the true Keth Mori. And we have come to cleanse the galaxy of your abomination." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "True Keth Mori? I thought your species was extinct. The weak among us died, yes," Keth Thul replied. "Those who could not adapt to the virus we created. But the strong survived by embracing the chaos, by letting the virus make us into perfect weapons of war. We have spent 200 years preparing for this moment, the moment when we would finish what the virus started." Through the station's sensors, Sarah could see the Keth Mori ships clearly now. They were grotesque combinations of metal and what looked like living tissue, as if the ships themselves had been infected by the virus. Energy weapons that seemed to grow and change shape were mounted on hulls that pulsed like beating hearts. "They're not dead," Sarah whispered to Kethvar. "The virus didn't kill them. It changed them into something else, into pure destroyers." Kethvar agreed. "This is what the virus was always meant to create. Beings with no purpose, except war and destruction." The attack began immediately. Keth Mori weapons tore through space, targeting not just the human research station but also the refugee fleets that had gathered around Earth. These weren't precision strikes meant to disable. They were attacks meant to completely destroy. But the defenders weren't the broken, helpless victims the Keth Mori had expected to find. Lieutenant Thompson, with his enhanced senses, detected the incoming missiles seconds before the computers could track them. His warnings gave the defense systems just enough time to respond. Dr. Martinez, using her quantum perception abilities, predicted the attack patterns and helped coordinate the evacuation of non-essential personnel. Most importantly, Patel and the other telepathically enhanced humans created a communication network that linked every ship in the defending fleet. Human tactical thinking combined with Zelathi mental coordination, Merhai spatial awareness, and Lumen energy perception to create a defense strategy no single species could have developed. "All ships. This is Captain Rivera," Marcus's voice came over the network. "We're not running from this fight. These monsters want to destroy everything we've worked for. Everyone we've saved. Time to show them what happens when species work together instead of tearing each other apart." The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Keth Mori ships attacked with pure savage fury, their weapons designed to cause maximum destruction, but the defending fleet moved like a single organism, each ship covering for the others, each species contributing their unique strengths to the whole. Zelathi ships used their newly restored telepathic abilities to coordinate attacks. Merhai vessels flowed through space like schools of fish, impossible to target effectively. Lumen energy beings powered the weapons of all the other ships, while human commanders used their adaptability to constantly change tactics and keep the enemy off balance. But it was the synthesis humans who made the real difference. Sarah found herself aboard the Endurance as the battle raged, her enhanced abilities letting her process information from dozens of different sources at once. She could see the entire battlefield like a vast three-dimensional puzzle, understanding patterns and connections that would have taken teams of analysts hours to figure out. "Marcus, the Keth Mori ships aren't just weapons," she said, studying the scanner data. "They're alive. The virus didn't just change the crews, it merged them with their technology. What does that mean for us? It means they have all the weaknesses of living things as well as the strengths, Sarah replied. They need to eat, to rest, to heal. Their ships are part of their bodies now. If we can damage them enough, the insight led to a new strategy. Instead of trying to destroy the Kethmori ships completely, the defending fleet began targeting specific areas that looked like vital organs, weapons that resembled arteries, sensor arrays that pulsed like hearts, engine sections that breathed like lungs. The effect was immediate. Kethmori ships began to slow down, to move erratically, to make mistakes they wouldn't have made if they were purely mechanical. Some even began to retreat, their living components overwhelmed by pain and damage. But Warlord Keththul's flagship kept fighting. The massive vessel charged straight toward Earth, ignoring the attacks from smaller ships. Its weapons powered up for what was clearly meant to be a final, devastating attack on the home planet of the species that had dared to turn the Kethmori virus into a tool of peace. He's going for a suicide run, Marcus said grimly. That ship has enough firepower to crack a planet. Sarah felt something click into place in her mind. All the pieces of information she had been gathering, all the patterns she had been seeing, suddenly formed a complete picture. No, she said. He's not trying to destroy Earth. He's trying to get close enough to spread a new version of the virus, one that will undo all our progress and turn every infected person into a weapon like them. She could see it now in the energy patterns surrounding the Kethmori flagship. Not just weapons, but biological warfare systems designed to corrupt the synthesis humans and turn them into mindless destroyers. We can't let that ship reach Earth, Sarah said. But we also can't destroy it completely. If those viral weapons detonate, they'll spread across the entire solar system. Then, what do we do? Sarah looked at the tactical display, seeing connections and possibilities that her enhanced mind could process in seconds. Human creativity, Zalathi coordination, Murhai flow dynamics, Lumen energy control. All of it came together in a plan that was crazy enough to work. We don't destroy the ship, she said. We capture it. And then we show Keththul something no Kethmori has seen in 200 years. What's that? Mercy. And the chance to choose something better than war. The final phase of the battle was about to begin. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the captured Kethmori flagship, looking down at the creature that had once been Warlord Keththul. The virus had changed him so much that he barely looked like a living being anymore. His body was a twisted mixture of flesh and metal, with weapons growing directly from his arms and data ports instead of eyes. The capture had been successful, but barely. Using combined synthesis abilities, the defending fleet had managed to disable the flagship's weapons and contain its viral payload before it could spread. Now Sarah faced the hardest part of her plan, convincing a creature bred for nothing but war that there was another way to live. Why? Keththul asked, his voice coming from speakers built into his throat. Why did you not destroy us as we deserve? Because destruction is what created this whole mess in the first place, Sarah replied. She gestured to Kethvar, who stepped forward nervously. The contrast between the two beings was striking. Kethvar had been partially healed by the human therapy, while Keththul was completely consumed by the virus's destructive mutation. This is what your people became when you chose war over cooperation, Sarah continued. You created a virus to destroy other species, but in the end, it destroyed you too. It turned you into weapons that could only exist to fight and kill. Keththul's metal-enhanced head tilted to one side. We are perfect killing machines. We feel no pain, no doubt, no weakness. You also feel no joy, Kethvar said softly. No curiosity, no hope, no love. I remember the old stories of our people. Before the war consumed everything, the Kethmori were once builders and artists as well as warriors. Lies, Keththul snarled, but Sarah could detect uncertainty in his voice. She activated a datapad and showed him genetic scans from the battle. These are readings from your crew members. The virus has been eating away at your brain tissue for 200 years. The parts that control emotion, creativity, and social bonding are almost completely gone. You're not perfect warriors. You're victims of your own weapon. Even if that were true, it cannot be undone, Kethel said. We are what we are. That's where you're wrong, Sarah replied. She nodded to Dr. Williams, who brought over a medical scanner. We've been studying your genetics during the battle. The damage is extensive, but not complete. With the right treatment, we can help you recover what you've lost. And why would you do this for us? We came to destroy you, Sarah smiled. Because that's what humans do. We adapt, we learn, and we help others do the same. Your virus taught us that the greatest strength isn't in being perfect at one thing, it's in being able to grow and change. Over the next several weeks, Sarah and her team worked to develop a treatment protocol for the surviving Kethmori. It was dangerous work. Many of the warriors were so changed by the virus that they could barely be considered alive anymore. But slowly, carefully, they began to restore what the virus had taken away. The first breakthrough came when Keththul began to remember things from before the virus. Childhood memories of building crystal sculptures with his clutchmates. The satisfaction of creating something beautiful instead of just destroying it. The feeling of caring about someone other than himself. This is strange, he said during one of his therapy sessions. I remember caring whether my actions helped or hurt others. Why would a warrior concern himself with such things? Because you weren't just a warrior, Sarah explained. No species is just one thing. The virus made you forget that, but now you can remember. As word spread through the galaxy about the successful treatment of the Kethmori, more refugee fleets began arriving at Earth, not just the victims of the virus, but species that had heard about humanity's solution and wanted to join the growing alliance. The Murhai were among the first to volunteer for the full adaptation treatment. Their leader, Flowing Current, had initially been skeptical but changed its mind after seeing the recovered Kethmori working alongside their former victims to develop new technologies. We spent so long mourning what we had lost, Flowing Current said as it emerged from the treatment facility with both restored aquatic abilities and new terrestrial adaptations. We never imagined we could gain so much more. The Lumen followed soon after, trading their former pure energy existence for a hybrid form that could interact with the physical world while retaining their energy manipulation abilities. Species after species chose to undergo the transformation, each gaining new capabilities while keeping their essential identity. But the real change wasn't in the abilities, it was in the cooperation. Species that had never been able to work together before found themselves naturally coordinating their efforts. The Zalathis restored telepathy, helped everyone communicate more effectively. The Murhai's spatial awareness improved navigation and logistics. The Lumen provided clean, efficient energy for massive construction projects. And humans, still the least impressive species in terms of raw abilities, became the coordinators and facilitators who helped everyone else work together. It's remarkable, Kethvar said during one of their research meetings. The virus was designed to make every species equally weak and isolated. Instead, it's making us all stronger and more connected. Sarah nodded as she looked out at the construction site where the new Galactic Cooperation Center was being built. Ships from dozens of species worked together, their crews coordinating through a mixture of telepathy, chemical signals, electromagnetic communication, and old-fashioned human radio chatter. The Kethmori were wrong about one thing, she said. They thought perfection meant being specialized for just one purpose. But real perfection is being able to work with others, to adapt and grow and change as needed. Captain Rivera joined them at the observation window. The first batch of children from the mixed colonies will be born next month, he said. Kids who'll grow up with abilities from multiple species as their natural birthright. Sarah smiled, thinking about what those children would be like. They would probably have telepathic abilities like the Zalathi, enhanced senses like the Murhai, energy perception like the Lumen, and human adaptability to tie it all together. But more importantly, they would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal, where different species worked together instead of fighting each other. What are we calling this new civilization? Marcus asked. The Synthesis Coalition, Sarah replied. Because we're not replacing what came before, we're building something that includes the best of everyone. 5 years later, Sarah stood in the same observation deck, watching children from a dozen different species play together in Earth's first interspecies school. They moved fluidly between different environments: underwater sections for the aquatic kids, energy fields for the photonic children, traditional playgrounds for the terrestrial species. What amazed her most wasn't their abilities, but their naturalness with cooperation. These children didn't see differences between species as barriers to overcome, but as interesting variations that made their games more fun and their problems easier to solve. One of the children, a human girl with lumen energy perception and Zalathi empathic abilities, ran up to the observation window and waved at the adults watching. "Dr. Chen," she called out, "come play with us. We're building a city that works for everyone." Sarah laughed and headed down to join them. After all, what was the point of saving the galaxy if you couldn't enjoy the result? Behind her, Keththul, now serving as the coalition's head of conflict resolution, smiled with an expression that would have been impossible when he was purely a weapon of war. The virus that had been created to destroy civilization had instead become the foundation for the greatest cooperative effort in galactic history. And it had all started because humans refused to accept that being different meant being enemies, and refused to believe that there was only one way to be strong. The galaxy was a much better place because of it.